Have we ever been in the middle of a heated argument, completely convinced of our stance, ready to stand our ground, and then, completely against our will, our throat tightens? We aren't sad. We are furious. Yet hot tears start streaming down our face. It happens in the most critical, high-stakes moments. Maybe it's during a tense performance review with a manager, where we need to definitively defend our hard work, or a late-night kitchen dispute with a partner over a boundary that has been crossed one too many times. The fire of absolute certainty is in our chest. The logic is perfectly arranged in our head, but our eyes completely betray us. We want to sound unshakable. We want to project quiet, assertive authority. Instead, our voice catches, our breathing stutters, and the frustration instantly compounds, layering on top of itself. Now, we aren't just angry at the injustice of the situation. We are furious at our own biology. It feels like our body is actively sabotaging us. Inside, our mind is sharp, focused, and ready to articulate exactly why this situation is unacceptable. But on the outside, we look completely overwhelmed. We feel like a child having a meltdown, precisely when all we wanted was to be seen as a composed, serious adult. It's a deeply isolating experience. We try to push the tears back down. We take a shaky breath, clench our jaw, and attempt to power through the sentence. But the harder we fight it, the worse the physical reaction gets. The person across from us pauses. Their expression changes from defensive to pitying, or worse, completely dismissive. They might even sigh, lean back, and say, "Why are we getting so worked up about this?" And just like that, our perfectly valid argument is erased. Because in our society, the second those tears fall, we immediately lose our seat at the table of rational debate, and we are forced into a completely different, deeply unfair category. The moment the tears spill, the entire dynamic of the room shifts. We are no longer having a debate about boundaries, workloads, or fairness. Suddenly, the focus is entirely on our emotional state. The person across from us might soften their voice in a patronizing way and ask if we need a minute. Or worse, they might sigh, lean back, and ask why we are making such a massive deal out of nothing. In an instant, our perfectly valid points are completely dismissed, because in our modern society, particularly in professional environments or logical disputes, crying is heavily stigmatized. We have collectively agreed that tears are the ultimate white flag. They are universally translated as a sign of fragility, a breakdown in logic, or an inability to handle pressure. People look at our wet cheeks and assume our system has simply crashed. And the most painful part of this entire experience is that we usually agree with them. We walk away from these interactions utterly humiliated, replaying the moment on an endless loop. We sit in our cars or stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m, drowning in self-critique. We label ourselves as weak, unprofessional, or too emotionally sensitive. We wonder why everyone else seems to easily maintain their cool, detached composure, while we fall apart the second the stakes get high. We assume there is a fundamental flaw in our psychological makeup. To survive this deep sense of shame, we start to mask. We begin calculating every interaction, terrified of that familiar, dread-inducing lump in our throat. We might avoid necessary confrontations altogether, choosing to quietly swallow our anger rather than risk crying in front of a manager or a partner. We write carefully structured emails because speaking face-to-face feels like too much of a physical gamble. We slowly abandon our own boundaries simply to keep our eyes dry. It is an incredibly exhausting way to move through the world, constantly policing our own physiology, feeling an agonizing disconnect between a mind that is fierce and strong and a body that seems determined to wave a flag of surrender. We treat this disconnect as a deep personal failure, convinced that our overthinking and sensitivity are defects that need to be fixed or suppressed. But as we dig deeper into how the human body actually processes conflict, a very different story begins to emerge. What if we have been judging ourselves for a crime we didn't commit? What if these tears of frustration have absolutely nothing to do with weakness, emotional fragility, or a lack of capacity? What if, when we look beneath the surface and examine the hidden wiring of our nervous system, we find something entirely unexpected? What if our body isn't breaking down in these moments at all, but is actually executing a highly sophisticated, deeply ancient biological survival strategy? To understand what is truly happening in these moments, we have to completely step away from the lens of social etiquette. We have to stop asking what our tears mean to the person sitting across from us. Instead, we need to ask what our tears mean to our own nervous system. Why does our body choose the exact moment we need to be our most fierce, to forcefully trigger a physical reaction we associate with surrender? When the heat of an argument rises, when the adrenaline surges, and our heart rate spikes to defend our boundaries, what is actually going on inside our brain? Is this really a system failure, or is there a deeply hidden biological mechanism at play? Could it be that these tears aren't a sign of emotional fragility at all? What if our nervous system is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do to protect us during a high-stakes conflict? To find the answer, we have to look past our modern social rules. We have to look closely at the ancient, invisible wiring of human biology. Because once we uncover the actual neuroscience behind this phenomenon, the way we view our own internal reactions will completely change. Let's look at what is actually happening under the hood when we hit that breaking point. During a high-stakes conflict, our nervous system is essentially sprinting. Unlike someone who might only be half invested in the argument, we are running at absolute maximum capacity. We care deeply about the boundary being crossed, the injustice of the situation, or the truth we are desperately trying to convey. To understand this, we can think of our brain and nervous system like a highly advanced, high-performance engine. When we are this fiercely invested in standing our ground, that engine is revving in the red zone. Our heart rate spikes, our focus narrows, and we enter a state of extreme physiological arousal. Because we care so much, we are generating a massive amount of internal, biological heat. But any engine running at over 100% capacity eventually hits a critical thermal limit. If it gets too hot, the entire system is at risk of seizing up completely. Our brain recognizes this absolute peak of stress and passion, and it immediately steps in to protect us. It triggers an emergency thermal override. To prevent us from completely overheating, our brain forcibly activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This is our body's internal network designed to hit the brakes and bring our core temperature back down to a survivable baseline. It floods our bloodstream with acetylcholine, a powerful neurotransmitter specifically deployed to forcefully slow our racing heart. And the physical, visible byproduct of this intense internal cooling process is tears. Just as a marathon runner sweats to cool the surface of their skin so they can keep running, our nervous system is emotionally sweating. Our body isn't collapsing in weakness. It is actively trying to regulate our temperature so we can stay in the room and keep fighting for our point. But as fascinating as that is, evolutionary biology reveals a second, even more surprising layer to this reaction. Our body isn't just trying to cool us down. It is actively deploying an ancient survival mechanism to disarm the person confronting us. Recent neuroscientific research has discovered that human tears of frustration are not just salt and water. They actually contain a very specific chemical signal, an odorless pheromone, designed to be intercepted by the person we are arguing with. When the person across from us sees or subconsciously registers these tears, a remarkable biological shift happens in their brain. The pheromones act like an invisible chemical blanket. They trigger a sudden drop in the opponent's testosterone levels, physically powering down the aggression centers in their brain. Our nervous system, acting like a deeply overprotective bodyguard, is throwing up a biological shield. It senses that the conflict has reached a dangerous peak, so it forces our body to send out a chemical command that literally translates to "lower your weapons." It is a brilliant, highly sophisticated mechanism designed to de-escalate a threat and ensure our survival. And once we fully understand that our tears are not a glitch, but rather an advanced biological defense system, the way we judge ourselves after a difficult conversation changes entirely. When we finally step away from the conflict and the adrenaline begins to fade, the familiar wave of shame usually creeps right back in. We replay the conversation endlessly in our heads, wishing we could have just been cold, detached, and perfectly rational. We tend to envy the people who can get through an argument without their voice ever shaking. We assume they possess a psychological strength that we somehow lack. But this is exactly where we need a completely new mental model for how we understand our own emotional responses. We have to stop measuring our internal strength by our ability to remain emotionally absent. If biology shows us that these tears are a sophisticated, physical response to immense internal pressure, then our reaction is actually a clear indicator of our own authenticity. It means we are fully invested in the reality of our own lives. The people sitting across from us, the ones who so easily maintain their cool, aren't always demonstrating superior emotional control. In many cases, they simply have the luxury of not caring as much. They are able to operate at a safe, comfortable distance from the outcome of the dispute. But for us, the boundary, the truth, or the relationship in question matters so deeply that our entire nervous system is willing to risk a physiological overload just to defend it. Our tears are simply the physical manifestation of our core values being challenged. They are the absolute proof of our biological honesty. We operate in a modern world that consistently rewards emotional detachment and often equates indifference with power. We are quietly taught that the person who cares the least in any room holds the most leverage. But a society built entirely on detachment is a society that loses its capacity for deep connection, genuine empathy, and real change. Our intense physiological reactions are not a flaw in our psychological design. They are the very feature that allows us to feel deeply, to care fiercely, and to stand up for things that actually matter. The exact same sensitivity that overwhelms us in a difficult conversation is the exact same sensitivity that makes us highly intuitive partners, creative thinkers, and deeply loyal friends. We cannot surgically remove the tears of frustration without also removing the immense capacity for care that caused them in the first place. So perhaps the next time we feel that familiar tightness rising in our throat during a critical conversation, we don't need to desperately swallow it down in shame. We can simply pause, take a breath, and quietly acknowledge that our nervous system is working exactly as it was designed to. We can recognize that we are not breaking down, but rather witnessing the true depth of our own humanity, overflowing because it simply refuses to be ignored. Have we ever experienced a moment where our body completely took over because we were defending a truth we deeply cared about? I would love to read about those experiences in the comments below. And if this exploration brings a sense of peace to how we view ourselves, consider subscribing to Human Within as we continue to uncover the hidden science of who we are.